Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a Q&A episode, and I have three questions I'm going to go over. But first, before I do that, if you could, or just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you have found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. And again, I appreciate everybody that listens, but obviously want to continue to grow the podcast, and this is definitely the best way to do that. Next, I have my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it. The link to that is in the show notes. I also have my free masterclass on nutrition periodization. Again, I go over each nutrition phase, how to do it, how to set it up, adjustments, common issues clients have in the phases. And again, the link to that is in the show notes. Next, if you don't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff, and that's where I'm most active on social media. I post these question boxes. If people have questions, I'll answer them on here from time to time. And then if you do have any questions on anything going over the podcast or anything I said that didn't make sense or you need a follow up on, you can always just DM me on Instagram there with that. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's questions. Actually, first, before I go into it, probably wondering why there's no books anymore. Things are looking bland in the background. We are moving this week. So let's see, it will be on Friday. This will be out on Monday. So I should be in my new house by then. So we'll have to revamp the office and everything like that. But just wanted for people that watch on YouTube, I just want to go over what that looks like and just give a little personal life update if anybody is curious. I don't know if that's something people enjoy. Again, maybe give me some feedback on that. But yeah, looking forward to that. New space. Also got a new mic. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last episode, but I have a new mic. Have just upgrading that. And then because the last couple episodes before this, I know some guest episodes, the mic wasn't the greatest and definitely got some feedback on that. Got that updated. Anyways, let's dive into today's question. Is it normal for sessions to feel more difficult during a cut? Weights just feel heavier. And yeah, I definitely think this is the case. Again, if this is happening right away, I would definitely want to look into things. Like if you just go straight into a fat loss phase, I would be like, okay, what's going on here? But two things that I would look at if this is the case. Okay. So again, one, I think it's perfectly normal to feel this way. Anytime I cut now, I can definitely tell that things just feel heavier. But there's a few things I want to go into. So first, a couple things I would look at. One is your meal timing relative to your training and in general. So, if you're going into your session fasted, if you're going into your session where you haven't eaten in a while, I do think that in a deficit, that's going to play a big role. You're just, again, you don't have as much food overall in your system. But then if we're also not getting it relative to our training session and far away, you're definitely going to feel that even more. I think you would feel it in a building phase and when you get more food, but it's going to be more pronounced during a cut. So I would see, what are you eating around your workouts? Okay. That's going to be super important. But then also just to dive a little bit deeper, what's your overall food intake look like? Like what's your diet quality look like more so than anything? Is it a lot of kind of processed food, more of it if it fits your macros approach? I think that could lead to you feeling maybe not as energized. You might be missing out on some vitamins and minerals. And then you may just have kind of foods that again, aren't going to keep you feeling full. So that would be one thing I'll look at is your meal timing relative to your training. And just in general, if your meal timing is off and in terms of what works well for you, again, that would be something that I would look at there with that. Next would be your rate of loss per week. So looking at your calorie deficit, how large is that? If it could be a thing where your calorie deficit's just too large and that could be causing you're not eating as much food overall. So you have a larger energy deficit. So you're going to feel hungrier. Your energy is going to be lower and you might just, and again, you don't have as much glycogen storage because of that, which glycogen is a storage form of carbohydrate. So again, if you don't have as much of that sitting around, that's going to impact how you feel during your training. You're going to tire out quicker. Everything's going to feel heavier. So definitely look at your rate of loss per week. Again, this is why I push for moderate rates of fat loss for most people, because if you combine this with poor timing and then you're also in a large energy deficit, you're definitely going to feel terrible during your training session. So I do think that, again, it's normal to feel this way, but I also would want to look into this a little bit more. I think that you shouldn't be, again, it would just be something like I would want to look at these two things because I think they would be the two big things. Again, making sure that your meal timing is what your meal timing looks like relative to training. And then your rate of loss per week, is the deficit too big? I also would look at your current body composition. If you're somebody that's not super shredded and you're feeling this way, I think one of these first two things are off. So if you're just, again, maybe you're moderate body fat for men, 15 or higher. And then if you're for women, let's say 20 to 22% or higher, maybe even a little bit higher than that, maybe 22 to 25% or higher, and you're feeling this way, I would say that, again, something like this is off, whether it be your meal timing, whether it be your diet quality, whether it be sleep, whether it be your rate of the size of your deficit, because I don't think that you should be feeling that too much. Now, the other thing that's going to play a role in this would be how long you've been dieting. If this is something where you've been dieting for an extended period of time, that would be something to look at as well too. The longer you've been dieting, the more you might see this pop up. But again, if it's like you're early into the weight loss, the fat loss process and you're feeling this way, I guarantee you one of these things are off here with that. And then how I wanted to finish this one up was, this is something I talk about. I think a lot of times people go in go into a fat loss phase thinking like, oh, training is going to be terrible. I'm just going to lose muscle. It's not going to be good. And while I do think that, again, that can be the case, I talked about how that can be the case. I also think we want to be careful with that mindset, because I think if we have that mindset, one, I feel like it's more likely to happen. And two, it leads to you not pushing as hard as you could in your training sessions. Again, that would be something that I would look at there with that, right? And whereas if you go into your training sessions with, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm in a deficit, but I'm still going to build some muscle. I think that allows you to push it a little bit more, and you're more likely to at least maintain your muscle in the process. Look at your expectations going into it. I think that's super important as well too. But, and then the third, obviously, again, with that is just, we need to look at our like methods and what we're doing, because I think people overlook that a lot. And they overlook their methods. And again, maybe it's not, again, timing's off, overall carbohydrate quality, timing's off, again, all the things that I talked about there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight to that. So let's go to the next question. What ingredients in pre-workout are worth it, and at what dose aside from caffeine? Yeah, obviously, aside from caffeine, like that's going to be the big one that people are going to feel, is that caffeine. Sometimes you'll see creatine in pre-workouts. I would just see creatine something that you want to take regularly. And so if you only take pre-workout on days you work out, you're probably missing out on some benefits there with creatine. While yes, it is in pre-workouts, and I think that's a nice little addition to it, I would still get creatine by itself. So then that way you can make sure you take it daily, because then otherwise you'll have to take your pre-workout daily, which if it's a stem-free one, maybe that is a benefit there for you. What are some other ingredients that would be worth it? Again, nothing that's going to be like super worth it in my opinion. So again, nothing that's really going to make a huge difference overall, but there are some things that may have some benefit, and I'm going to go over those. I'm going to pull up another pre-workout as well too, stem one. So yeah, so just a few. So some things I look for. And again, understanding that like nothing's going to make a massive difference. I think the things that I'm looking for are going to be more things that help with like blood flow, hydration, things like that, right? There's not going to be this like magic thing in a pre-workout. Again, the caffeine for most are going to be the ones that you really feel and everything like that. But yeah, so let's go through it. So first would be citrulline malate. This can help with blood flow. And so again, this is something that you can maybe get a better pump. And plus, when you just have better blood flow during a workout, it can be super helpful there. Around 4 to 10 grams is what the research says there around that. And then we have betaine. Betaine can help with strength and endurance. 1 to 2 grams. I've seen some research on it that shows that betaine can be helpful. Again, I think it's still fairly early in the process. So it's like again, I wouldn't be like, you have to have this in there, but something that has shown some promise in research. Hydration and electrolytes. I think people underestimate the impact of just being hydrated for your workout. So I think one of the benefits here of taking a pre-workout is it does give, if you sip on it before you work out, you're getting some hydration in, which maybe you wouldn't otherwise. So I think that can be a benefit. And then obviously just having some electrolytes in there. So like some sodium, potassium, stuff like that can be super helpful to help with the pump and everything like that. So again, just being hydrated. So like for me, how I do it is I like to take a stem-free pre-workout for the blood flow stuff in it. Alpha GPC is also in it, which can be like can help with cognitive function. It also supposedly increases power as well too. So, I find that those things are helpful. But for me, the big thing is like, it gets me something that's not caffeine, and it just gets me hydrated before, and that can just be super helpful, right? So again, that benefit. Another common ingredient that you'll see in pre-workouts is beta-alanine. And so the research on it is mixed, right? From my understanding of the research, beta-alanine is going to be something that helps with like activities that last 1 to 2 minutes or longer, like consecutively, right? So this is where if you're a strength athlete, or again, you're working in like the 6 to 10 rep range, it may not be helpful. But once you get over that 10-ish rep range, maybe beta-alanine will be something that could potentially help you. But like I said, the research is mixed and it has some backing of it. So it's like that ingredient where it's like, you can take it if you want. Again, it's ultimately up to you there. And again, from my understanding of beta-alanine, that's another supplement that it takes a little bit to get saturated in your muscles. And so you want to take that pretty regularly as well too. Beta-alanine is also the one that kind of gives you that tingling feeling if you take too much. So you definitely want to look out for that. But yeah, those are going to be the big things from a pre-workout perspective. I'm a huge fan of Legion's Pulse pre-workout. Again, I like all the ingredients they have in it. And then obviously you can get the stem one or the stem free. I take stem free just because I get enough caffeine from coffee, and I just wouldn't want to add another thing of caffeine, especially I typically work out between 2 and 4 p.m. and I don't want to have 350 milligrams of caffeine at that time. Yeah, those are just a few things to look at. And again, understand that pre-workout at the end of the day, it's probably not going to meaningfully make a difference in your workouts. For me, it's a habit thing, or like a ritual type thing. And then also, like I said, the hydration side of things gives me something different to sip on as I kind of finish work. And then again, there's some blood flow stuff that can certainly be helpful. Citrulline malate. And like I said, betaine has some backing behind it. And then alpha GPC can also be helpful as well too. So that's why I take that. Again, if anybody has any specific questions on any pre-workout, I can always look over it for you. But again, that's, to me, the pre-workout's not needed supplement. It's okay if you have the money, you want to spend it, you can definitely take it. But again, just understand that it's not going to do a ton. I just remember when I first got into pre-workouts, mine was Jack 3D. This was back in probably 2010, maybe. Man, that was freaking crazy, right? But I remember taking it before and being, oh, this is going to be the thing that I'm going to get these amazing gains from this. This is going to just really help my workouts. And yeah, obviously the caffeine was helpful. And again, it also gave me that ritual of drinking something before, or just, yeah, I guess ritual, routine, whatever you want to call it. But obviously it didn't have like massive impact. If anything, though, it just gave me the sense that, okay, I need to take this beforehand, even though I didn't really need to. So some potential downside with it. And obviously you can take that caffeine way too late and that's going to impact sleep. So we'll definitely want to look at that. Good question, though. I thought that was super interesting. I don't talk too much about pre-workouts, but that's just because it's just not really going to do much. So what metrics do you have clients track? All right. Again, this is going to be based on body recomposition. They want to improve their body composition, lose body fat, build muscle. So what are some things I think are super important? So I think body weight's important to track. I talk about how we don't want to just focus on body weight, but I do think it's important because that can tell us the energy balance you're in. Now, there's some situations where it doesn't, and this is why I take other metrics as well too, which I'll go over. But body weight's a good one to give you an idea of where your energy balance has been over the last couple of weeks. If we're seeing it trend down, you're in some sort of energy deficit. And this is helpful because now it can help me explain to clients, hey, here's some symptoms that you could be feeling. Or if they're telling me certain biofeedback things that they're feeling, hey, I was super stressed, or hey, I was super hungry, I can be like, look, I've been in a calorie deficit for a couple of weeks based on your weight. So it makes sense that you're feeling this way. And then here's what you can expect moving forward, right? If their weight's staying around the same, we can say that they're probably closer to their maintenance. If their weight's trending up over time, we can assume that they're in somewhat of a calorie surplus. So again, it just helps us make decisions and make changes that we need to the plan if that's the case. But like I said, we're also going to look at progress pics and measurements. These are super important because while scale weight can tell us the energy balance you're in, sometimes it doesn't tell us the full picture. I've seen many times where clients' weight is maybe trending up slightly or it's staying the same, but they're like seeing fat loss, seeing positive change in their body, right? And again, that's where like you could see that and be like, well, what the hell's going on? But the scale weight doesn't tell us what that is made up of. This is why we need to take progress pictures and measurements too, because we need to combine these to see, right? Hey, weight's slowly been slightly been trending up. Oh, look, your measurements in your midsection are going down, right? Or hey, it's staying the same. I know you want to see weight loss, but you're dropping weight staying the same. Like you're dropping body fat in that process and building muscle, right? So again, it's just nice to have that. It gives us more things to look at and to make decisions off of. I like to track resting heart rate. I think it's great for overall health, overall cardiovascular health. And then just, it can also tell us when a client's under a little bit more stress. So I really like to take resting heart rate there. Biofeedback, I usually typically do this on a scale 1 to 5. We're looking at things like hunger, energy levels, digestion, training performance, libido. How's client feeling? Because that's super important, right? If stress is high, sleep's poor, we know that it's, hey, you also said your hunger's high. Again, can connect the dots here with all this to paint a better picture of what's going on. And then we can come up with strategies to work around that. We're obviously looking at training log as well, too. I want to see what they're doing from what their training looks like. That's super important. Steps is another big one I look at. I like to see overall activity levels. What's your movement look like throughout the day? Because that's going to help with energy expenditure. It's going to help with appetite regulation, just overall health. You're going to feel better when you move. So again, we want to look at that. So sometimes I'll do more. It just depends on the client, but these are the staples. And these are the ones that I'm going to really try to push every client to track there with that. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions on this. That's it for this episode today. If you have questions on anything like this, again, like what your macros need to be, why you're not feeling great in your training, then my free 30-minute strategy calls for you. We can talk about where you want to go, what your goals are, where you want to go, and how we can bridge that gap on whether that is working with me or some on your own, following to see if what you're doing is working or if we can alter your plan a little bit to get you to your goal. So again, if that's something you're interested in, the link to that is in the show notes. And as always, I'm just a DM away on Instagram. So that's it for this episode. I'll chat with you guys next time.